Do you want money faster? Well, the Federal Reserve Board is working on it. Last month, the Federal Reserve Board Governor Brainard announced the details of the Fed's real-time payment system, which is called FedNow. And it was a charming Zoom-style presentation. We all got to see what appeared to be some evergreens in Governor Brainard's backyard. But while we were watching the presentation, a lot of commentators were asking themselves, why is the Fed even doing this? Don't we already have a real-time payment system? So today I'm going to talk a little bit about that and explain what we know at this point about the FedNow system. And lastly, give you some tips about what banks and FinTech companies can be doing right now to prepare for the rollout of the FedNow system. Consumers in the US have grown comfortable with the notion of using apps on their phone to make nearly instantaneous payments. But payments through the FedNow system are different than payments through an app on your phone. The apps on your phone like Venmo or PayPal or Square's Cash App are what is known as closed-loop systems. So what that means is both the payor and the payee need to have accounts with that provider in order to transact. And that transaction within the provider's system is nearly instantaneous. However, if the payee wants to take the money that they received, so for example, if you get $20 at the end of a meal, you want to then transfer it to your bank account and make a separate payment, that transfer from the provider to the financial institution generally takes somewhere between 1 to 3 days. And this is a very common experience for people who are using apps like Venmo for the first time and take the money that they receive and want to make another purchase outside the system. In addition to the various private closed-loop payment networks, there is one real-time payment network that is currently operating in the United States that is open-loop, and it's operated by the clearinghouse. So the clearinghouse is an entity that is owned by several dozen of the largest financial institutions in the United States. And because it is backed by the largest banks in the United States, it currently provides real-time payment services to more than half of the demand deposit accounts in the US. However, many smaller banks, community banks and regional banks, have refused to use that real-time payments network and have lobbied the Fed to create its own real-time payments network. And so now with FedNow, the Federal Reserve has committed to doing that. FedNow is going to be available to all banks through the FedLine network. The FedLine network is the electronic network that is currently used by over 10,000 banks. And it's going to process transactions 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, no bank hours, no bank holidays. And the transactions will be nearly instantaneous. Within seconds, the funds will be transferred from the payor to the payee, and they'll be final. The settlement will be final. That means that it will no longer be reversible. So that's all great news for consumers. It's also great news for banks and fintech companies that want to make use of this service and offer these real-time payment services to their customers. But there are a couple of limitations that people in this space should keep in mind. The first is that FedNow is going to be limited just to domestic US dollar payments. So it will not be handling cross-border payments, although the Fed has said that they will consider doing that in the future. The second is that FedNow will only be available to financial institutions that currently hold reserve bank accounts with the Federal Reserve. And that means that banks and branches of foreign banks will all have access to FedNow. However, non-bank fintech companies will not be able to directly use the FedNow system. And that's actually different than how it's being handled by other central banks. So for example, the Bank of England, with its real-time payment system, is going to be offering services directly to non-bank fintech companies. FedNow is currently scheduled to become operational in 2023 or 2024. And that gives financial institutions a few years to figure out how they're going to take advantage of the services that are available on FedNow. But it's going to be here sooner than you think. So there are a few things that you should be doing now to get ready for the FedNow rollout. First of all, you want to make sure that any application programming interfaces or APIs that are going to be supported on FedNow are also compatible with your own bank systems or your FinTech company systems. Second of all, you want to make sure that your anti-money laundering and sanctions screening programs are going to be able to adequately screen instantaneous, irreversible transactions. Because as you can imagine, if you screw up and it's instantaneous and irreversible, you could be in big trouble if you inadvertently process transactions that finance terrorism or launder proceeds of crime. Finally, you want to get any necessary authorizations from your regulator before you roll out a new line of business to consumers. You want to get all of those ducks in a row so that as soon as FedNow becomes available to you, you can instantly offer those products to your current customers or your potential future customers. So the regulatory questions that relate to FedNow are foundational and they're constantly changing, in large part because this is a completely new payment rail. But good news, I'm a lawyer. So if you have any questions about FedNow or how you can take advantage of the FedNow system, give me a call. I'd be happy to talk to you about it.